what's your opinion on the impact of AI? Is it positive? Is it negative?
I embrace it, okay? I see the pros and cons, just like the pros and cons with humans, okay? Human intelligence, the same deal. I see musically, I see the benefit from production to save time management, to cut pace, and you gotta feed AI. Once you feed it what it needs to do, you can multitask, have it doing that. Meanwhile, you're over here doing that. So as far as time management and editing, I think it's great. My wife's a scientist, so I've been following, there's a group called Monsanto, and Monsanto is over the whole agricultural food situation, and their PowerPoint and plan is to destroy all the farms, monopolize this, that forces everybody into their hands so they can make all the money. By growing your own food in your environment, it's a natural antibiotic for any disease that comes with. That's why you have to grow your own food in your environment. So your food is your medicine. Our people were caught up into, we chose education over liberation because we were allowed to read. Read books. Not that bad.
No,
but it's a weapon of mass distraction when you need to be over here farming, and farming had a bad taste for our people who suffer from post-traumatic slavery syndrome because we had to do it. That was the thing that we need to be doing now.
Right.
You think we'd be sick? I'm running out of energy. See, we use
What up, world? It's Legrand. This is another episode of the Keep That Same Green Energy podcast. As we do always, we allow our guests to introduce themselves. Guests, please introduce yourself.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Marcellus Waller, a.k.a. Waller Weed,
Okay.
a.k.a. TMI, a.k.a. sometimes Y. Okay, that's where I'm at with it.
Thanks.
Welcome.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So, in keeping with the, in keeping with the podcast, we ask our guests, what is your affiliation with Legrand, or what is your affiliation with climate action? This is someone that I happen to know for a number of years, so I'm interested in his perspective on how he's going to discuss how we got acquainted or something interesting.
This is a very interesting question because let me give you a little backdrop on this. The recollection deficiency I'm involved in the marijuana situation I was dealing with. It's put me on a serious destructive thought process where I'm like, I don't remember where I met this dude, but I had two events that I narrowed it down to.
All right.
Okay, the first one was in Rick's house, at Mom Duke's house. We were recording, and you came through giggling. Okay, because we already, I think you might have came up to ITR and met me before.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that was brief.
Okay.
And then when we got there, we got to really act up, and you already heard stories. I heard weird.
Yep. And I'm going to make that correlation when I get my chance.
Exactly. And then, and that's my first one. The second one is I remember at was it Brave New World? He had a gig. I had just started playing with Gumbo, and y'all did your routine, and I met you. I brought the Bible to the gig. Yep. And I was reading, and then you looked at me and said, you started dancing, and all y'all started dancing. I closed the Bible, and I said, forgive me, God. It's time for me to live a little bit in the moment. And that's my memory of you. And I remember you.
What was that, break dancing or something?
Yeah, you break dancing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my recall.
Hey, listen. Considering the amount of marijuana consumption over the years, that is a lot to recall.
Man.
So Waller weed to me was a myth. It was actually like someone from mythology or folklore. The way I heard his name for years before I actually met him and put two and two together who he was. The track athlete, phenoms, the music prodigy, all of the above. I'm like, I gotta meet this guy. Funniest thing, I'm listening to DJ Cash Money's tape. He got a mixtape of his of him doing what he does, and there's an interlude on there, and this dude is wilding out crazy, and he's like, and at the end I hear him say, "It's Waller Weed." I was like, wait. It was like a Loch Ness Monster fighter. Wait, is that Sasquatch? Is that me? It's Waller Weed? Yo, the amount of research that I put into to identify, is that the guy that was wilding out of that Cash Money, DJ Cash Money mixtape? I said, is that one and the same? And then when I put it together and met you at ICR.
Yeah.
I met you a couple different times, but it was the first time I met you and I heard you said something like, right.
Yeah.
I was like, that's him.
Yeah.
I was like,
it was that rat. It was that rat. Yeah.
And then from there, it completely made sense. His energy, the comedic timing, the rhetoric, just all of that just lined up perfectly for us. So that was amazing. Now, obviously, there was some. There's a lot of things we could talk about being on tour together as part of Get the Universal Music being organized.
Yeah.
Those we'll have to save for a more intimate discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to stay on the matter at hand. But in keeping with Keep That Same Green Energy podcast, we like to keep the same energy. So one of the things that the audience kind of sent in to me is impact of AI. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, the impact on our daily lives, and particularly its impact on music. What's your opinion on the impact of AI? Is it positive? Is it negative? How do you feel about it? Are you intimidated by it?
I embrace it. Okay, I embrace AI. I see the pros and cons, just like the pros and cons with humans. Okay, human intelligence, the same deal,
or lack thereof.
Lack thereof. So you have AI. I see musically. I see the benefit, and from production to save time management, to cut pace and have it. You got to feed AI so it can do it. Once you feed it what it needs to do, you can multitask, have it doing that. Meanwhile, you're over here doing that. So as far as time management and editing, I think it's great. As far as the natural composition element, I think that should stay natural, stay sort of like analog. But when you start talking about editing and polishing the song, AI is the shit.
Oh, yeah.
AI from a medical standpoint is great when you talk about nanobots going inside and finding cancer and demolishing it, pulling it out from that level. Yeah, but then we have the flip side. Okay, now you got Nimrod. Okay, now you got Dr.
Sterling was going into your body.
AI so for a criminal-minded individual, AI is going to be a disaster.
Lex Luthor would have loved AI.
Oh, Lex Luthor.
He would have crushed Superman if he had AI.
So yeah, AI. I see it as a positive though. Overall.
I do too. I think it's like and this is my opinion. Technology in general is that even when it's in its infancy or demo stage, you got to get in there and play around with it, learn it, understand it, and give feedback. I think you mentioned it earlier. AI is only as dangerous as the person that's wielding it.
Exactly.
So people get concerned about, artificial intelligence, if it's continuing to learn on its own, it can become some dangerous entity, Ultron or whatever it is.
Exactly.
But the way I could be ignorant, the way I understand AI and the large learning modules and stuff like that is it's a finite, it's a finite amount of data that they get access to.
Right.
But if they ever get an opportunity to go and get infinite amount, then that's when it.
Right.
Or what you're programming. If you're programming your human bias, your racist thoughts into AI, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll let you with that.
That's a good
That's a good feedback on that.
All right. Yeah. So now, as we do with the Keep That Same Green Energy podcast, the intent is to really understand what guests know, how they're educated on climate change.
Right.
So what is your definition or your perspective on climate change? Is it real? Is it a hoax? How should we be treating it? What's your opinion?
I think it's real because I've been following it. My wife's a scientist, so I've been following something called geoengineering. So geoengineering deals with them manipulating, putting chemtrails in the skies, and putting chemicals in the clouds to make it
right for rain
and make it. And it's also a plan of there's a group called Monsanto, and Monsanto is over the whole agricultural food situation, and their PowerPoint and plan is to destroy all the farms, the natural. And everyone
monopolize
it. So you're forced to, and Bill Gates is involved in it. with that.
You name dropping.
Yeah, name dropping. Well, he's funding a lot of that.
Okay.
So he hooked up with them that have a concept where that forces everybody into their hands so they can make all the money. My example of that is, so everybody buys seeds. You think you get your seeds, grow your own food.
Yep.
By growing your own food in your environment, it's a natural antibiotic for any disease that comes in. That's why you have to grow your own food in your environment. You can't get something from somewhere else because that's in their environment.
Right.
They won't have the natural antibiotic. So your food is your medicine. But I deviated. But this is what I'm saying. So they take the seeds and it's a thing called organic. Organic is where they genetically modify the seed. So you think, so
You think
everybody
you get
thinks that's
natural
right.
organic
And
seeds.
it's
It's already been
produced.
engineered.
It won't be able to reproduce like a organic seed, natural organic seed. So it's called organics. But the geoengineering is to abolish all the farms, so to poison all the farmers, destroying all that, which force you into their hand. Then this is the only food you have. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
You believe it. You believe that it's real.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. And you can see how you can see all these natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes in areas wiping out these farms. Targeting. So if you look back and look at the pattern of the people that are most prosperous, and then the climate change, the other way they do it is because everybody's going to say, "Oh, that's God," and then no one will even think that it's somebody behind the scenes on it. So they're confusing the environment by causing these weather shifts.
Anomalies.
And so the agriculture, like the seeds and the plants and the crops get confused, and now you got a frost, and then it's the 90 degrees the next day. So the frost kills it, and then all the crops are messed up, and then it's 100 degrees the next day. So
Wow.
yeah, it's really relevant.
So I learned something today. So as I'm a self-admitted conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
But you just
Oh,
put me
man.
on steroids.
Oh yeah.
We believe it because we still So and one of my other podcast guests talked a little bit about the chemtrails as well, but I get it. I never really thought about the climate change impact as, the Wizard of Oz behind it really causing the weather anomalies. But I can see the benefit to Monsanto and others about having a monopoly on food, because obviously you need that existentially. So where I was trying to leave it though is you got into the agriculture piece a little bit. It's interesting because you talk about almost like a war for farmland.
It is.
You've got on one side of the coin, you've got agriculture taking over, and we're tearing down rainforests and things to make room for more farmland.
Right.
But if the chemtrails are then poisoning that farmland, that's a war in itself.
That's a war.
That is
right there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's deep right there.
That's deep, man. Yeah. See, we all gonna learn something today.
It's powerful, man.
So I'll probably have to put a disclaimer out because we're gonna have to fact check it. But at the end of the day, it typically makes sense that absolute power corrupts absolutely. To get an opportunity to monopolize the fact that the irony of allegedly Bill Gates being involved is just it's just too much for me. But that is definitely an interesting perspective. I just what I tell folks is climate change is what's happening.
Right.
Regardless of if you get involved or not.
Right.
I'm focused on climate action.
Right.
Doing something to mitigate climate, whether it's soil drawdown, or whether it's, mitigating stopping your carbon footprint.
Right.
I'm not saying everybody's got to go out and get an EV. But I'll transition into this next segment where we basically ask guests if there was one thing that you could do that you're not already doing to combat climate change or to commit to climate action, what would that one thing be? Sounds like you're not. So you're already not eating red meat and
right. It's one of the biggest things, and this is to the core. The main thing is the psychological and emotional climate of an individual and them dealing with the internal climate of their thought process. And once that climate is regulated, then the manifestation externally will be the utopia that we are hoping for by doing. Because once you get that together, your thought process, then you'll be able to eat clean, think clean, and take those
Sustainably.
execution. Other than that, it's a blueprint thought process that you're saying, this is what we need to do, this is the solution. But to execute the solution, you have to go inside and regulate the climate change in your thinking. So you
Fair
can
enough.
externally do the things that we
So part of the effort of this podcast is to educate
yeah
on, climate change, climate action, things that you can do, things you shouldn't do.
Well, we just pulled up in a vehicular scenario that is beneficial.
Again,
Atmosphere.
just because I have a Tesla does not mean that I think everybody has to have a Tesla.
No, but
Tesla
that's
has
one example of
that is one thing that you can do yes. But there are things like, so I wanted to ask you before I ask you about the one thing.
Yeah.
We talked about farming for a
Right.
what and you mentioned your wife being a scientist.
Yeah.
What's her perspective or your perspective on hydroponic farming?
That's great because you know that is my perspective on it is cool because a lot of weed heads have been doing that, growing it hydroponically in the house, and that's a great solution moving forward with your food because of
what you talked about.
Yeah, because of that and then you can do vertical gardening in your house and have the greenhouse, all that inside, and eat your food from that. Moving forward, the number one commodity is going to be seed on the planet, and everything that you see in society is controlled by food. You control the food, you control the
people.
Yeah. So
So you're a fan of hydroponics.
Yeah,
so
totally.
so I was introduced to a hydroponic system maybe 2 years ago, but didn't turn it on until last year, and I was surprised at how effective it was at growing. Now I don't your theory on the seeds. I got my seeds at Home Depot, so they might have been contaminated seeds. I don't know, but I mean literally in 24 hours of UV light, the set. Like quick.
Yeah.
And so like
perfect.
I've got a mine is probably about this big, and then I've got the vertical. But I mean, it is amazing to me how effective hydroponics is. No weeds, no weeds to deal with.
Yeah.
The roots look kind of alien. But aside from that, I'm a big fan of hydroponics. So if you haven't considered hydroponic gardening, it doesn't take much to start. You can get a small system like this, maybe about $38-$40, and start growing start growing vegetables at home.
Yeah.
That's
just out.
Yeah, it's like I focused on the first year I was like, I'm just gonna focus on cucumbers and tomatoes because I know I'll eat that. Right. But now I'm graduating to squash and different things. But so the one thing that you would pledge to do, it sounds like you're already doing some things. If it was one thing that you would do, I think this podcast is about education.
Yeah.
So the one thing you could do is we could just talk about it. You can tell people about it.
That's cool. Well, one thing would be to educate everybody, had that discussion on the table about how you're going to execute what we already know. Because it's no different from a book to someone reading that book and information's inside of them. It's no different. You're just storage. Right. You're just like a flash drive. But all that information just went from
you're the smartest guy in the room, but if you can't share it.
And a lot of people, our people were caught up into, we chose education over liberation because we were allowed to read. So because we're allowed to read, so when we were allowed to read and all that, we were like, I'll read books. Not that that's bad.
No,
but it's a weapon of mass distraction when you need to be over here farming. And farming had a bad taste for our people because we suffer from post-traumatic slavery syndrome.
Bad.
We don't want now because we had to do it.
Yeah.
That was the thing that we need to be doing now.
Right.
But
that was
want to be
the intended
I'll I'd be waiting.
Lieutenant 48 was in the mule was to use that land to farm. Absolutely.
That's our power.
Yeah.
In dealing with the Hummers. You know, that's very important. So yeah, I hope I didn't.
No. That's great. I mean, I think education, empowerment. You know, what I hope for in a perfect world, I would hope that every person that comes in contact with this podcast would say, "I'm going to do one thing."
Right.
It could be recycle more. It could be composting. It could be whatever. Get an EV. Whatever. Doesn't have to be a Tesla, but get an EV or whatever. Just commit to reducing your carbon footprint. That alone, I think, would be huge. But because I'm a climate activist, I'm going to be more on the radical side of economically forcing the hand of those to make sure things happen. Right. And I think that is the political clout that we have as people of color to kind of force the hand of those powers that be to say, this is something we want. This is something we want now, and make it happen. And to close that out, I've mentioned in another podcast, when I'm out at these climate strikes and different things, I'm probably the oldest guy there. But these 5th graders, 4th graders, they're crying their eyes out because they understand that they're looking at a very finite future. They're everything that they are hearing is telling them that pretty much in the next 10, 12 years, they're not going to have a planet. And so you can imagine the amount of anxiety that these kids are dealing with, and it's causing, depression, it's causing suicide and different things. So
it lowers their frequency.
There's a lot of things that we have the power to do immediately, and my thing is about the action. Let's get it done now.
And I'm educated. I didn't know this guy was that guy at all. Now I know you're that guy. That conversation, because we already go there. That conversation is getting crazy now.
I didn't even know you was in there. The fact that you're betrayed has those credentials behind it. Oh man! We're gonna be the Q&A that I have prepared for you and her. Come on, man!
That's great.
So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Keep That Same Green Energy podcast. My guest, Marcellus Waller.
Did you know it?
I'm Legrand, but as we always do, this is the section of the podcast we call spilled bars or filled jars. And the premise of that is, so we talked about this.
Yeah.
So what is the song that you identify with, either Meeting Me or Legrand, the Gumbo Experience, whatever it is, something that when you think of Legrand, there's a song in your head that, and not to put you on the spot, but the intent of the podcast is
the number one song that comes to my head when I think of you is
Hot Music by Soul.
That's the jam. No, but my jam is from the Legrand album. I forget the first line.
Oh, which joint? You about this music thing on passion? I knew you were going to say that. I was going to say that.
My joint.
Oh, got to believe you.
Yeah, because reason why is that opening line speaks to everything I am about community. You really about
that's about this music thing I'm passionate. Been spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I had to find a way to flip that. But as you know, folks, I'll have to take my song and reflip it for this segment of spill bars or fill jars.
Right.
Now, you do have the option to fill jars. You can cut a check if you want.
Absolutely.
But you got bars, so I definitely got to hear you. So folks, we'll do it a little bit different this time. We'll cut to that segment, but Marcellus is very humble in terms of his musicianship. He is a beast on the keys, just an overall musician. Animal Muppet is what we call him. So I'm gonna bring the MP out. I'll bring out the MP keyboard, and we're about to do something amazing, and we'll record it all and share it with y'all. But until then, visit keepthatsamegreenenergy.org, and as always, keep that same green energy. Salute.
About the music thing I'm passionate. I've been spitting rhymes, so let the Shaq, you know how we do this thing.
What's
They're
good?
not
Keep that
ready.
same
Y'all
good
not ready.
energy.
Y'all not
Not
ready
at
for
all.
this. This is too much
Not
for
at
y'all.
About this music thing, I'm passionate. I've been spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. About this music thing, I'm passionate. I've been spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. About this music thing, I'm passionate. I've been spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. Spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet. About this music thing, I'm passionate. I've been spitting rhymes since I left the bassinet.
Still cooking.
Right.
The energy. See, we use an awful lot. Energy. You think we'd be sick? I'm right.